All right. Well, anyways, we're going to keep flashing this book every time it's appropriate. Okay? Every time it's appropriate. How to cope when you are surrounded by idiots. Everybody's getting a copy for Christmas. Let's start with the MAGA turns, because it's part of the title. I got to make sure I get the videos that are part of the title in the video.
All right, so yesterday,
Your salary
the
too?
U.S. economic report came in. Q1 GDP is down.
Yeah, because of Trump.
The
Wait,
biggest
are they
danger
in
to the
a-
Trump administration and their agenda
Is themselves.
is very clearly an economic downturn.
That too, yeah.
By far, it's not particularly close. I've been saying this now for months. If there were to be an economic downturn,
Wait, is Ben Shapiro in a hall or something like? Why is he echoing? Why? Okay, because Ben's echoing, but Adam doesn't sound like. Is Adam echoing? It sounds like just Ben is. Hold on.
and their agenda
Is themselves.
is very clearly an economic.
Young Adam Mockler has so much. I know this is gonna sound weird. Okay, it's gonna sound weird, but yeah, his skin so much better than mine. I'm in my mid-40s, guys. I got fucking stress acne. Adam Mockler handling the stress so much better than I am.
Economic downturn.
That too, yeah.
By far, it's not particularly close. I've been saying this now for months. If there were to be an economic downturn under President Trump, the rest of the very important agenda items that he is pursuing, everything from illegal immigration to wiping DEI out of the federal government, everything from rebuilding the United States military to Doge, all of it goes out the window if the economy falls, because the way the American people think
This is how every one of his fucking wealthy supporters is thinking right now.
about politics is quite simple when it comes to
Chipmunk in a
presidents and
hollowed-out
the
oak.
economy.
I mean, okay, he's right here, and we'll finish playing this in 1 second, but we do have some massive breaking news regarding the economy.
What's that, Natalia?
The Trump administration is in a very tight spot because they have put our economy on the verge of collapse.
countdown
And
to
keep in
shortages,
mind,
we talked about
was
this last
all
night.
self-inflicted. This was an unforced error on behalf of Trump because the economy was doing relatively well. Yes, there were a lot of problems with wealth inequality and wages,
does have
of course.
pretty strong
but
eyebrows.
We were
Yeah.
on the verge of a recession in 2022, and Jerome Powell and Biden were able to stick the soft landing relatively well.
Yeah.
Inflation came back
They did a
down.
fucking amazing job.
We were on the right path at least.
Do you guys see that Donald Trump is talking about Powell again? He's going to upset the billionaires, guys. He's got to be careful. He's playing a very strange game. It's like it's 5D chess meets ping pong or something like that. 5D chess meets like fucking back alley craps, I think is actually what it is. But he was just recently talking about Powell again. And last time he talked about Powell, Jamie Dimon and Basint and all of his investor buddies were like, you need to calm that shit down or else we're going to have a problem. We all know who Donald Trump's real handlers are.
Even though the economy was far from perfect, and Trump has yanked us off of that path. This article describes how in less than a week, our economy will be in a tight spot. I mean, let's just start here, and then we'll go back
Nick and Alex have a little chat and Alex turns on Trump. Oh, okay. We got to watch that. That sounds spicy.
to Ben Shapiro. Make sure you drop a like, drop some blue hearts. And this
Yeah,
thread
drop the
reads,
blue hearts.
The White House has put
7 of
itself and the country in a bad position, but doesn't even realize it yet. Around April 10th, China to U.S. trade shut down, but it takes about 30 days for containers to go from China to LA. So we're technically still experiencing the trip.
Okay, so this is where they got that 7-week number from. So I was talking about it last night, that most of the articles I'm reading are saying it's about 7 weeks out until we start seeing empty shelves. And you've got like all these toy companies that are suing Trump for unconstitutional tariffs. You've got even Republicans pushing back on the floor. Obviously, Vance yesterday voted to even stop the rebuke of Trump on the tariffs. So we're about 7 weeks out from empty shelves is pretty much what any article that I've been reading has said. If anybody else has any other information, please let me know. But everything I've been reading so far is that we're 7 weeks out. And that makes sense when you look at 55 days to New York by sea, right? Like that's, we got 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks there. 55 on top of that is 25. That's another. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's about 7 weeks. It's about 7 weeks. So 49 days to 7 weeks. You're talking 55 days to New York by sea. So when we say 7 weeks too, we're talking about 7 weeks till like the nation is seeing empty shelves, not just like California, not just Houston or not just New York, but the nation is seeing those. And here's the other thing about that. So even if they were to get trade deals done, you don't just restart shipping, right? Like, this is something I think a lot of people don't understand, is you're not going to go from a complete shutdown standstill to all of a sudden product is back in stores. That's not how anything works. Most people that actually understand what happened during the economy and are just like full of shit can tell you what happened during COVID. The COVID shortages, the COVID supply chain disruption, to this day is to now, like up until I'd say Biden's last like couple months, was still kind of iffy. It still had problems. I mean, obviously we still have the wars going on. We have the minerals thing in Ukraine. That was actually a big win for Ukraine. Ukraine forced America to recognize what their sovereign rights to those minerals were. If you haven't read about that minerals deal yet, you should read about it. It's actually a huge win for Ukraine. Once again, they did not get any security assurances from the United States of America on those, but they didn't get that back when we forced them to turn over their nuclear weapons either. So it's not much different than that time. But the biggest win for Ukraine in that is that now America does have a connection to a profitable situation. By the way, Trump's whole Ukraine's going to pay back all the money that they owe us from us going to war for them or supplying them with money and weapons, that was left out. Trump backed down on that. Even the deal as it is today doesn't even operate off of current mines and stuff that are working. It only works off investiture. So America doesn't get any of those minerals or any of that trade deal unless they invest in Ukraine, and Ukraine opens up new mines and starts new processes. So that's really big, because that means, once again, America does have a reason. I mean, we all know the real reason should be humanitarian reasons. But if you're just speaking from the Trump administration's position, they do have a reason now to side with Ukraine in any conflict, because they will lose access to those resources. And Vladimir Putin, he is not concerned about Donald Trump, but Vladimir Putin is concerned about the American military. Our men and women in the American military scare the shit out of Vladimir Putin. If he thinks that, fighting against Ukraine was tough, he don't want to see Americans over there. So this is actually huge for America to be involved again in contracts with Ukraine, because now people like Trump aren't going to be able to sit these out, because the only way he's going to do that is if he thinks that Putin taking Ukraine will then give him better access to those mineral rights. And I do believe that Putin could convince Donald Trump that he would do so, even though he would 100% shaft Trump in America if he did do that. Right now, what you're seeing is Trump being put in a position where we now have access to those mineral rights, not the rights, but to doing trade deals for those minerals. And they are very important to the future of America's economy. So this is once again a place where you're going to see Basint and the rest of these guys standing up and saying, you know what, this is actually very important that we defend Ukraine's right to these minerals, which means we have to defend Ukraine, which means we will be sending weapons over there. And Donald Trump just once again allowed a sale of $50 million worth of weapons to Ukraine. Like, that's a huge win for Ukraine. But back to America, where shit's actually fucked up. We are talking about 7 weeks. We are talking about 7 weeks, probably more like 6 now, until we see empty shelves. Obviously, certain things won't be as impacted as others, but big stores, Target, Walmart, those places are going to be experiencing COVID-like shortages within the next month and a half, unless trade deals get done like 3 weeks from now, because you can't just restart production. China's not filling ships full of goods and waiting to send them to America as soon as the trade deal is done. They have closed down that production. They have moved that production to the EU. They've moved that production to other countries. And now you even see like Apple's talking about most of their products are going to come from India. So this is much more than just 6 weeks until empty shelves. This is the potential of months of empty shelves in America even if they get trade deals done on time.
Trade from pre-liberation day. But it takes about 30 days for containers to go from China to LA. So we're technically still experiencing the trade from pre-liberation day. 45 days to Houston by sea and 45 days to Chicago by train, then 55 to New York.
Talia says, I don't believe we really want those minerals. Don't we have huge amounts in Nevada? So the whole thing with America, and this is one of the things I've tried to point out to Trump supporters multiple times, is America has always been about conserving their resources and using others, right? Like it's one of those problems with Trump's whole ideology that we should be using everything that we have in here in America. It's one of the dumbass opinions that he has, because you don't want the minerals in Nevada, the rare earth resources in Nevada being used. You want to hold on to all those. It's the same reason that we have an oil reserve. When people are like, we should open up and we should just be selling all the oil here in America, blah, 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 all that stuff. We don't want to do that. We want to be able to make good trade deals with other countries where they don't have the production capabilities, or they don't have the want or the need to use those, and so they generally ship them to other countries. So we want them to come to us, because to be 100% with you, we don't want to spoil our national parks. One of the really shit things about Trump putting tariffs on lumber in Canada is that now they're trying to change the language surrounding endangered species. I literally did a interview with Lowell Bear, who was one of the guys that went around and really worked really hard to get the Endangered Species Act put into effect, and even worked on, I think it was a purchase in Montana of land for the government to be preserved. So to cut down lumber in America, the reason they want to change the language in the Endangered Species Act is because it protects their habitats. They want to change it from being able to protect the habitats to now just protecting the animals themselves. The reason they want to do that is because they want to cut down those forests. Because if we're not using Canadian lumber, then we have to use American lumber, but that lumber is in protected areas of America. So once again, when we talk about resources from other country, and one of the reasons that being a global trade partner is so goddamn important to America is that we aren't industry. We aren't about mining stuff. We aren't about like doing all these blue collar jobs anymore. And that's why it's hurting middle America. But the answer isn't to bring back these things and to spoil, the national forests. It's about creating good relationships with our allies, helping to train and educate people in the Midwest and other places in the South to do jobs, like I said before, like green energy jobs, installing solar panels. Like one of the biggest problems is that we've demonized education so much in the South. We've demonized education so much in the heartland that now these people think it's actually demeaning. Like intelligence is bad. You shouldn't want to work in these higher education. You shouldn't, because that's you're being one of these Democrats. You're one of these bleeding heart liberals now. But that's such an ass backward attitude, because whether or not America pushes forward or not, that's where the world is going. That's why China is one of our main competitors on that stage, is because they're pushing really fucking hard to get their populace into a place where it's educated enough that when these manufacturing jobs do go away or taken over by automation, that we will then see them be able to move into better jobs, which is just better for humanity. You shouldn't want people to work in factories for the rest of their life. Those aren't great jobs. They don't pay well. They're not, the union ones are, but they don't want unions either. It's like we shouldn't want that for the American people. We should want the American people, every single person, to have access to a good paying job, healthcare, housing, food, because the better off the entire country is, the better off we are. So when we talk about resources coming from outside of the country, what we're talking about is the ability to use resources that, yes, we do have some here in America. Not all of them, by the way. We don't have all the resources that we need, but a lot of them we could be getting from other countries. And then we have a wealth of them here, which allows us, it's like putting money away, right? Like when you have an emergency fund of money, you put it away, and if you want to go on vacation, you don't touch that money. You put it away and it stays there. That's what the oil in America is. That's what the resources in America is. That's what our national parks are. I've told you guys before, like a lot of the stuff that goes on in government isn't about humanity. It isn't like when you talk about DEI is great because it does two things. For those of us in the middle class and lower, it helps to boost up the impoverished communities, which are made up by a massive amount of minorities. So DEI makes the lower class raise themselves up a bit, which makes the middle class safer and more secure. When people are buying houses, when people can afford food, when people have good jobs, they don't commit crimes. Therefore, you don't have to pay for as much police. You don't have people, abusing the healthcare system because they have to. So they're going to ERs because they don't have insurance. And the other thing that it does, like I said, so many people get this wrong, is that DEI actually, if you look at the top Fortune 500 companies, they all have some type of DEI policies that have increased the amount of money that they have profited from. And that is because diversity of thought is an incredibly important part of running a fucking business. So sometimes when shit comes from the top, even if it's not for the most humane reasons, we can take the humane part of it as a W. So the fact that we don't despoil our national forests is actually super important. We want to have those national forests. One of the things that Lowell Bear said that really stuck with me was how, Newt Gingrich was on board with the Endangered Species Act because he didn't want his kids to grow up in a place where they couldn't see a red-tailed falcon. We should want that, but we should want it for the world. And that's why I think that our relationships with our trade partners shouldn't be abusive. They should be tit for tat. It shouldn't be America vassalizes the world. There shouldn't be a feudal system in which, the United States of America sits on a throne of the God King. Those types of societies always collapse. And when we're talking about a society that's global in that instance, we're talking about global collapse, which is not good for anybody. This is one of the reasons that a lot of my ideology leans left, is because for the most part, people on the left believe that the more that we take care of each other, the better it is for everyone. And that's much more in tune with my ideology. All right, let's see. Who do we got? Grey Pill! Phildo! What's happening? Mitchell, what's happening? GK! What's up, GK? What's up, Nicole? What's going on? It's not DI when someone's parents gives them $1 million to start a business? No, of course not. That's not what I'm talking about. I hope that's not what you got from what I was saying. That's not what I'm talking about.
So there's going to be a massive delay in the effects. That means that there are no economic...
I know how to use my back button
45
now.
Technically still experiencing the trade from pre-Liberation Day. 45 days to Houston by sea and 45 days to Chicago by train, then 55
much more to my
New York. So there's
ideology
going to be a massive delay in the
through.
effects. That means that there are no economic effects of what was done on April 10th until about May 10th because it takes 30 days for these...
Oh, look, we got a troll. Mills. Hi, Mills. You make my content, just so you know. All the violence and destruction comes from liberals. Yeah, what happened on January 6th, Mills? What happened on January 6th? Where are the most fucked up states in the country? How's the South doing? How's the South doing down there, Mills? How are those majority red states doing on violent crimes? How are they doing? They're doing great, huh? Wait. January 6th those were just tourists, right, bro? Those were just tourists with a fucking hangman's noose, right? Shouting "Hang Mike Pence." Those guys weren't violent, breaking windows, smashing through. You know what I'm saying? That definitely that wasn't violent. Those are just tourists, right, Mills? That's what you believe? Holy shit, you guys are a cult. That was sarcasm. It's a form of DEI. Okay, all right. I'm just making sure. I'm like, sometimes I get up here and I rant. And I'm like, I wonder how many people think I'm saying something I'm not. Yeah. Oh, it's Antifa. You know that you want to know Schrodinger's Antifa cipher? Oh, I'm sorry, Alan. Schrodinger's Antifa. They're both sissies, but also ultra violent. Okay, liberals are both pussies, but they're also ultra violent. This is the conservative point of view. You're both not capable of defending yourself, but also extremely violent. It's like when they were like, Joe Biden has dementia, but also Joe Biden is doing the Biden crime family. Yeah, like nothing they say actually makes sense. It's amazing.
Tariffed ships to reach a massive 3 days for containers to go from China to LA.
It's okay,
so
Mills
we're
is gonna find
technically
out when
still
you don't have no food to
experiencing
buy.
the trade from pre-liberation day. 45 days to Houston by sea and 45 days to Chicago by train, then 55 to New York. So there's going to be a massive delay in the effects.
Yes,
that means that there are no economic effects of what was done on April 10th until about May 10th, because it takes 30 days for these tariffed ships to reach the shore.
So Mills, are liberals pussies or are they violent? Which one is it, Mills? Which one is it? Are you scared of the liberals, Mills? When you get that civil war you guys talk about, you guys have been jerking off to for so long, you guys are like, civil war's coming, brother. Which is scary for you guys because I could fit right in with your crowd. That'd be amazing. We have videos. Hey, Mills, how many people got arrested in the Black Lives Matters protests? Because I'm sure you don't believe that liberals also get arrested, right? It's a two-tiered justice system, right? Those poor January 6 terrorists, those poor guys. There's a two-tiered justice system. How many people? Oh, so you're not concerned, Mills? They're both really violent, but you're also not concerned. I see why Ginger's disparaged in Britain. Oh no, guys. Mills is trying really hard. He strung together a 4-word sentence. He's working hard, guys. Mills, my 12-year-old, would kick your ass. My 12-year-old would double leg you and ground and pound you into submission, dog. My sister's definitely ground and pound your ass. My sister's been to prison, dog. All right. My daughter is in better shape than you'll ever be in your life. Mills is all pent up. He's never seen a woman naked in his life except for on the internet. And he just gets on these chats and he's like, guys, liberals are violent. But I'm not scared. Oh, I love you, Mills. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Around that time, it's already started
He
to
ain't
happen.
scared, bro.
Trucking work is going to dry up. Warehouses will start doing layoffs because no labor is needed to unload containers, reducing the need for shipping labor. All
Mills,
of this will start in the
thing.
Los Angeles area. And please do not...
God, look at Mills. Oh, they're like NPCs, bro. 1-6 wasn't an insurrection. Now a coup. Installing Harris is more of a government takeover, bro. Actually, Kamala Harris came closer to becoming the president than you dipshits did to actually reinstalling Trump. So, yeah, that's got to be sad for you guys. Your trim chasing days are long. Your trim chasing days never existed, dog. You'll never have children.
Mistake this as me trying to...
Ain't no woman trying to get with you, Mills. Ain't no woman dumb enough for that
any
shit.
person who has a respectable economic philosophy,
said
like
trim
Warren
chasing,
Buffett or anyone,
5
is just
alarm.
keep a steady hand. Do not panic.
You are
I can't
my
give
content.
financial advice, but
You
you
are
never
my
want to
content.
panic,
Thanks for being
move
here.
around your money.
Thanks for
Like in the
being here.
2008 crisis.
Here, let's go back. He's going to use big words, Mills. So I want you to just take a deep breath, okay? Okay? He's going to talk about real economic shit, okay? So I want you to take 2 minutes to yourself, meditate a little bit, get yourself ready, lube up those 2 brain cells that you have left in your head that are knife fighting over a can of beans right now. Lube them up, dog, because he's going to use big words for you, okay?
To unload containers, reducing the need for shipping labor. All of this will start in the Los Angeles area. And please do not mistake this as me trying to panic you economically. all of the advice from any person who has a respectable economic philosophy like Warren Buffett or anyone is just keep a steady hand. Do not.
Yeah. You just, at the end of the day, it's like I told you guys yesterday. Buy things that make sense. Don't spend all your money. Don't go out buying things that are going to be tariffed because they're going to be tariffed. If you need to get, some auto parts, something fixed on your car, go do that shit. Now's the time before the tariffs hit. If you needed some technology, you passed that point. Okay, if you needed technology and you didn't get it, you're past that point, my friends. It's not worth it. Pull back, put some money away in your account, buy the things that are necessary, get your essentials, buy some bullets. Okay, that's my advice.
Not panic. I can't give financial advice, but you never want to panic move around your money. Like in the 2008 crisis,
Mills is
if
definitely
you would have done anything panicked
like
or sold
right
your
now.
whole portfolio, then you probably would have been screwed. So just let everything run its course. And my advice would be don't panic. But what do I know? That being said, stocking up on extra toilet paper and toothpaste, that's not a bad idea. But I'm just worried that people are going to panic sell all of their assets. But what do I know? I don't know anything. Don't take advice from me. This says, after about 2 weeks, it'll start hitting Chicago and Houston. Let's say the White House, after 3 weeks, changes its mind on May 31st. They say, quote, this isn't working out like we thought it would. Tariffs back to zero. Let's say China then says, bygones be bygones. We'll go back to how things were. Let's say every factory in China that got screwed by their orders being canceled says the same thing. Quote, no problem. We'll make and ship. The problem is, even under the most favorable conditions of China and the factories restarting economic ties as if nothing happened, it would take another 30 days before economic...
Dude, good job, Adam. Holy shit. Good job, buddy. I did not think he would go over this. There has not been a lot of people talking about the restarting of manufacturing. That is good job, Adam. This is my dude.
Economic activity is activated and revived due to the 30-day delay between shipping. And that's just in LA. Remember, in Chicago, you then need to wait another 45 days. In Houston, 45 days. And New York at that point would still be getting containers from before April 10th because they have a 50-day delay. The whole situation is a bit like COVID lockdowns. I believe I said this at the beginning, but we are on the verge of a COVID-esque style lockdown. This says the whole situation is a bit like lockdowns. Once you shut down, it takes a long time to get economic activity back to where it was, if you ever can. I was at the Trump rally, the 100-day celebration rally in Warren, Michigan a few days ago to debate his supporters, to push back. And a lot of them were saying, oh, it's just going to be like COVID. We survived COVID. The only difference is many, many people didn't survive COVID. Many people had their lives ruined. But number three, this is an unforced error, a self-inflicted error entirely. Now let's move on to this updated article from this morning. Some of the last cargo ships carrying Chinese goods without crippling tariffs are currently drifting into U.S. ports. And this builds directly off the back of what I was just reading, how there's a 30-day delay. So keep that in mind. Cargo ships...
did you guys see that... was it Wise? Here. Wise tariffs. Here you go. Wise shares massive tariff bill on just one shipment from China. Here you go. So this is President Donald Trump's tariffs are hitting tech companies hard, or at least they are in this one specific case. Wise, a company that specializes in security equipment like cameras, took to X on Wednesday to share an example of what tech companies are going through right now. According to Wise, one shipment of floodlights accrued a tariff bill that was much larger than the sticker price, $255,000 in tariffs on a $167,000 purchase. $255,000 in tariffs on a $167,000 purchase. We live in idiocracy. We live in idiocracy. If you think that that's a good thing, you should take an economics class. Holy shit.
These goods, without crippling tariffs, are currently drifting into U.S. ports. And this builds directly off the back of what I was just reading, how there's a 30-day delay. So keep that in mind. Cargo ships from China loaded after April 9th will carry with them the 145% tariff that Donald Trump slapped on goods from the nation last month. Next week, those goods will arrive, but there will be fewer ships at sea and they will be carrying less cargo. For many importers, it is too expensive to do business with China. Yet China is still one of America's most important trading partners. It's where we get most of our clothes, footwear, electronics, and microchips, which power appliances, thermostats, and anything else that beeps. Businesses are making a difficult choice. Continue selling products from China at more than double their previous prices, or stop selling these products altogether. For consumers, that means that some products will be hard to find or may be expensive to buy. Listen to this, quote, starting next week is when we'll see the arrivals of the tariff announcement, or the stuff that was tariffed on April 2nd. Remember, it takes roughly 40 days. Said the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, quote, cargo coming into Los Angeles will be down 35% compared to a year ago. Imports into the United States during the second half of the year are expected to fall at least 20%.
And if you guys remember right, from the 1930s Smoot-Hawley Act, we had a global trade decline of 65%. Now, that's not going to happen now because global trade is better and more interconnected than it was before. So that's why he's talking about the cargo coming into Los Angeles will be down 35%. So what you're going to have is you're going to have America experiencing something much like the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act ended up doing to America back then, and exacerbating the Great Depression. But as far as the rest of the world goes, like that prime minister from Singapore was saying, they're working on deals with each other. They aren't going to be they'll experience some hardships. America is the number one consumer market in the world. So they'll experience hardships, but it's not going to be like it was in the Smoot-Hawley Act for the rest of the globe. It's just going to be for America. This isn't something that should be that hard to understand. And as we said before, it doesn't even really matter whether or not these tariffs end up resulting in good trade agreements, because you've destroyed your alliances with other countries, and you've even pushed a lot of these countries to already create contracts with other countries. So all of the trade that America is now losing, like China to the EU or EU to India, whatever it is, all of those countries, they're not going to cut their contracts and just say, oh, okay, now America's back, so we're not going to do this with China anymore. No, that's their thing now. So the damage is already done. And I've said this before, what this is all going to relate or amount to is it's going to amount to Donald Trump having to capitulate, just like he did in the minerals deal with Ukraine, just like he's done already with China. He's going to have to capitulate. He's going to have to back down. He's going to have to take subpar trade agreements that are either as good as they were in the first place, or even worse, because now we're in a worse position for making these trade deals. And after he does that, he's just going to come out and tell his supporters that he won. He's going to come out and tell his supporters, he's going to be like, I got the greatest trade deals. America's going to be great. Just give it a couple years. It's going to be tough. There's not going to be any food for you to eat. You might starve. Just deal with it. I think that's what he said in that interview, right? Just deal with it. But the reality is no matter whether they're bad trade deals, good trade deals, or no trade deals, the MAGA cult isn't going to change their point of view on this. Like I said before, the only people that really matter in these equations that you should even be trying to talk to, that you shouldn't be exhausting yourself, and you should just be learning how to cope when surrounded by idiots. The only people you should be talking to are conservatives that are straight up saying to you, hey, I do understand that this is dumb. I do understand that this is bad for America. I do understand that I made a mistake in voting for this man. That's the only people worth your time. Anybody else that if they want to stay in the cult, they want to, continue to own the libs. The liberal tears is all I care about. It doesn't matter if the country burns down. It doesn't matter if we ruin all our alliances with everybody else. We're making the lefties cry. Those people, fuck them. Okay? That's how you got to be, because you don't have the energy. You don't have the energy to spend on cult members that will never, ever believe the shit that you want them to understand. But you might be able to talk to a conservative or two and be like, this shit is dumb, right? This shit is dumb. And have them go, yeah, this shit is dumb.
Or go 40 days. said the executive director of
Oh,
the
Mills
Port
is
of
gone.
Los Angeles. Quote, cargo coming into Los
trolls don't
Angeles
last
will
long.
be down 35% compared to a year
trim
ago.
chasing, guys. Trim
Imports
chasing.
into the United States during the second half of the year are expected to fall at least 20%, which
Getting
means
roasted,
if there's
he's
less
not
of a
even here
supply
anymore.
and the same amount of demand, prices
up,
will
Nana?
increase. JP Morgan expects a 75 to 80% drop in imports from there. That would essentially nuke the economy. Let's hear what little old Ben Shapiro has to say about it, because most conservatives have their head buried in the sand and their eyes closed. But I tuned into his show randomly this morning, and this dude is actually kind of like ragging on Trump's economic policy.
Adam Mockler
If the
knows
economy
he
is
watches
good,
Ben
the president
Shapiro.
gets
It's
the
okay.
credit. If the economy is bad, the president gets the blame. It is really that simple. Well, yesterday, the GDP report came in, and it showed negative GDP growth. 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth is typically termed a recession in sort of technical terms. Now, obviously, Americans are feeling very skittish about the economy in general right now. And feelings, unfortunately.
And what is hold on. So what's the indicator? What is it? Unemployment indicator for recession. The SOM rule. So the real-time recession indicator. Here you go. The SOM rule is a widely used unemployment indicator for recession detection. It signals a potential recession when the 3-month moving average of the national unemployment rate rises by half a point, more above its low over the past 12 months. This rule has been shown to provide a relatively accurate and timely signal of impending recessions. So this is by Claudia Sahm. The SOM rule, developed by economist Claudia Sahm, focuses on the rate of change in the unemployment rate rather than the absolute level. It specifically looks for a significant increase in the 3-month moving average of the unemployment rate, indicating a potential shift in the labor market. So what it means is that if our 3-month low average is 4% and we hit 4.5% unemployment in a 3-month period, there's a very good chance of a recession. Now, during Biden's administration, that did happen, and we still did not enter a recession. But the reason that happened was because of the incredibly low unemployment rates coming out of COVID. So our average low was something like 3.5 or 3.6, and it moved up to 4, but we avoided a recession. That's because that's an anomaly. For the most part, the SOM rule is actually incredibly accurate. The lady, what's her name again? Claudia Sahm, also has some really good things to say about why stimulus works. And if you're ever interested in looking into some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff is really, really accurate and does indeed call for when there will be a recession pretty accurately. So if you guys want to look into that, I suggest you should look into the SOM rule. And if you see unemployment spike from, I think that, if just guessing, I'd say the overall average for the last 3 months is 4%. I would say 4% is probably pretty accurate, somewhere between 4 and 4.2. So maybe 4.1. So if you see unemployment spike to 4.5 to 4.6%, there's a pretty damn good chance we're going into a recession.
Unfortunately, don't care about your facts when it comes to the economy very often. Sometimes people feel worse about the economy than it actually is. Sometimes they feel better about the economy than it actually is. But all of those feelings tend to make themselves actually heard in the economic statistics eventually.
Stay safe out there,
because
Nana.
people are buying and selling
Stay
and
safe.
doing all of these things based on what they feel their own personal financial status is. According to the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. economy contracted in the first 3 months of 2025 as businesses rushed
By the way, the Wall Street Journal is a right-leaning publication.
to stock up on imports ahead of the Trump administration's tariffs, and consumer spending slowed. The Commerce Department said U.S. GDP fell at a seasonally and inflation-adjusted 0.3% annualized rate in the first quarter. That was the first contraction since the first quarter of 2022.
And this is self-inflicted, caused directly by Trump. I just had to point that out.
Consumer spending.
Yeah, once again, none of this was necessary. Like I said, probably the biggest struggle for me in this administration so far is his inability to take the W's that were left to him by Biden. Any other president, every other, where's that? Hold on. Got to get the book. Every other fucking president, every Republican president knew to take W's from the Democrat that came before them. Every single one of them were smarter than Donald Trump. Holy shit, that's insane to say. I thought the bar couldn't get any lower. All he had to do was take the W's. He could have continued with a low unemployment rate. He could have continued with bringing back semiconductor production under the Chips and Science Act. He could have continued with a strong stock market. He could have continued with building global alliances and defending our allies. All of those things, W's across the fucking board. You want to know the worst part about it? He could have just told his cult that those were all his wins, and they would have believed him. I mean, when in December, after Donald Trump was elected, he started talking about how good the economy was all of a sudden. Oh, the economy's so good now because I was elected. The stock market's doing so good because I was elected. Where every cult fucking Trump supporter, even a couple lefties, were like, actually, yeah, now the economy's good. Something that they had been harping on for like the last fucking 2 years. The economy's bad, bro. The economy's terrible. 1 month after he was elected, economy's actually doing pretty good, dude. It's going good. He could have just lied to him. He could have just fucking told them all, like, the unemployment rate is down because of me. The stock market is great because of me. Semiconductor production back in America because of me. And every one of those cult supporters would have been like, yep, Donald Trump's the man. Might as well be Jesus. My tier is Donald Trump, Jesus. Okay? Donald Trump, he might be Jesus. He could be. He looks just like him. Okay? Could have done that. That's the most frustrating part of this shit.
Did increase at 1.8. U.S. GDP fell at a seasonally and inflation-adjusted 0.3% annualized rate in the first quarter. That was the first contraction since the first quarter of 2022.
And this is
Dude, I gotta check that out,
self-inflicted,
Perry.
caused directly by Trump. I just had to point that out.
Consumer spending did increase at 1.8%. That is the smallest increase since mid-2023.
Jay, stay safe out there,
Spending
Jay.
by the federal government fell, but the main
Everybody in
driver of
Texas,
the first
stay
quarter
safe.
contraction was, wait for it, the tariff war. Of course. It turns out everyone has been on the edge of their seats. It's a roller coaster, this tariff war, at best. Investors have pulled their money out. If, in fact, they are spending, they are attempting to beat
Treasury
the tariffs
bonds have been
to the
sold.
table. They're essentially buying things, stocking up on
Exactly,
imports
Renee,
before
facts.
the tariffs hit. Net exports, the difference between what the United States imports and exports, subtracted nearly 5 percentage points from headline GDP. This was the biggest quarterly drag from net exports on record, dating back to 1947.
I actually feel like there might be a
47.
pretty good chance. Wait, did he say 1947? Damn. But I actually think there might be a pretty good chance that Trump's insane,
Me and Adam are
unpredictable,
simpatico.
erratic economic policy will make a lot of median voters look back on the Biden admin and realize that he had a steady hand. Obviously, we understand that Biden and Jerome Powell were able to stick the soft landing through having a steady hand and through some very careful legislation on Congress and Biden's part.
Do people across the political spectrum know that Jerome Powell is the man for the job? It's not a Democrat thing. It's not a liberal thing. It's not a conservative thing. This is, like I said, this is the main problem with MAGA. MAGA's biggest issue is that everything that is good, but not something that their cult leader likes, they think is bad. Like, you should be able to criticize what he's doing and still be like, you know, I think possibly things could get better. Like, I can tell you, I could 100% be a better arguer, better debater as a Trump supporter than Trump supporters are. I can make better arguments for the shit that they believe than they can. And that's why it's fucking sad. Because it just shows that you're politically illiterate. It means that you don't give a fuck about anything as long as the dude that you voted for looks good. That is a recipe for disaster.
But a lot of American voters think that Biden crashed the economy or that inflation was terrible under Biden. That is just what is reflected in the polls. Many people think that. But after Trump's actual, like, self-inflicted sabotage economic policy where he just wants to tank the economy, maybe people will realize, holy shit, the old man actually was just, like, had a steady hand at the wheel and was not crashing our economy.
Yeah, and if you want to be honest, one of the arguments that I've had with left-wing people, Democrats that weren't fans of Joe Biden, right, is they go, but it wasn't him. It wasn't Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't doing anything. He's senile. Like, okay, all right, let's say you're right. Let's say behind the scenes, Joe Biden wasn't making any of the decisions. Why is it important that he does? Like, if I run Home Depot, by the way, the Home Depot dude is fucking older than Joe Biden, all right? And I have appointed administrators into the system, into the business. And those people chosen by me follow my plan and get things done. Is that not what we want? Is that not what we want? There was a certain point in America's history where presidents weren't expected to do everything. They weren't expected to make all the decisions. It's why our government is set up the way it is. The president isn't supposed to be an authoritarian. He's not supposed to, the executive is not supposed to have ultimate power. It's supposed to be a game of tug of war. And the reason that is that way is because no business succeeds from one person's vision. It is a conglomeration of different, diverse opinions, life experiences, mental aptitude. Like, this is what makes people successful. Not just them, but the people that surround them. This is, once again, the problem with this idea that MAGA has. We just put everything in Trump. Even if Trump was a smart person, and that's a stretch. That's a stretch. Let's say he was, though. Let's pick somebody I like. I love Einstein. Einstein was legit a genius. Okay? If I elected Einstein to the presidency, would I want Einstein to make all the decisions? Fuck no. Of course not. Because Einstein had blind spots. Everybody has blind spots. So instead, you employ people from all different walks of life. DEI. You bring them in because their point of view is good for what they're doing. You don't put Pete Hegseth in charge of the military. Why? Because just because he's in the military don't mean he knows shit about running the fucking largest organization in the fucking country. The biggest budget. No, you pick Mark Milley. I don't even like Mark Milley. You pick Mark Milley. You pick General Mattis. I like General Mattis. By the way, these are people that Trump actually put in charge. Because in his first term, as far as the military goes, he left it in the hands of people that did have a fucking brain, that did have life experience. There were some other places where he just put his kids in. That's a different story. If you want somebody in charge of the Federal Reserve, you want Jerome Powell. It doesn't matter what your politics are. You want a person that knows what the fuck they're doing. I don't give a shit how old Joe Biden was. I don't care how senile you think Joe Biden was. At the end of the day, the people that Joe Biden put in the places that they were supposed to be in, Pete Buttigieg, okay? Even the fucking Chips and Science Act came from Chuck Schumer. I'm not exactly a Chuck Schumer fan, but I'm super fucking happy that he pushed for the Chips and Science Act. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to look at people and go, you know, I'm not a big fan of that dude, but he knows what the fuck he's doing, so we're going to let that happen. That's what you do. You don't give all the power to one person. Can you imagine if you actually believe that Joe Biden was senile, if all of us on the left were like, fuck Congress, fuck the Senate, fuck the judiciary system, Joe Biden gets to make all the decisions. If you're a right-wing person, a conservative, because I can't speak to the MAGA cultists, you ain't going to listen anyways. Imagine if the left empowered Joe Biden and said, you get to make every single decision. If you truly believe he is senile, then you wouldn't want that. And the same thing goes for Donald Trump. Instead of
so basically, imports actually radically increased because everybody was trying to get in under the wire before all the tariffs kicked in.
What up, Gnome Domed?
Imports subtract from the Commerce Department calculation of GDP because they represent the spending on foreign-made goods and services. So, does this mean the economy is weak? It doesn't. The economy is not, in fact, weak. The economy, in the absence of the trade war, remains fairly robust at this point. Not like 5% GDP robust, but ready to grow.
By the way, I'll make the argument that Trump supporters should have been making the whole fucking time Biden was in office. Yes. Well, actually, I was going to say by every metric, it's doing well, but those metrics are pulling back, actually. But regardless of how robust America's economy is, the lower middle class, the middle class, and even the upper middle class are and obviously the impoverished. I'm always including the impoverished in every one of these conversations. That should come without saying. Are struggling under the current economy in America. And we all know why that is. We all know it's because 5% of America holds 99% of the wealth. Or 90, 95, whatever it is. 99%, right? Fuck, I can't even remember anymore. It's a lot. But I can tell you this. If you're lower middle class, if you're impoverished, if you're middle class or even upper middle class, this robust economy ain't gonna do anything for you. It doesn't matter what agreements Donald Trump makes with the rest of the world. He could make the best goddamn trade agreements ever made with the rest of the world. 10 years from now, you ain't gonna be any better off than you are now. And the reason that is because we're ruled by oligarchs, because we are slaves to the ultra wealthy, because the system was rigged to keep you where you are, manufacturing goods to make their economy robust. We need to go back to Teddy Roosevelt. We need to go back to charging taxes to ultra wealthy people that keep them paying their fair share. A time when the middle class was robust, the strongest middle class this country has ever seen. That's what we need to do if you ever want to get out of this shit. If you ever want your quality of life to improve. If you ever want to feel like you're not going to go bankrupt because your wife had breast cancer. That's the only way we're getting out of this. You're not going to get out of this by making good trade agreements with China. That's just going to move more money to the ultra wealthy. They just made the most corporate profits ever during COVID. Did your pay increase? They just made the most corporate profits ever. Did you get health care? Did you get UBI? No. You know what you got? You got increasing insurance rates. And you got Donald fucking Trump for your president.
Oh. And services. So, does this mean the economy is weak? It doesn't. The economy is not, in fact, weak. The economy, in the absence of the trade war, remains fairly robust at this point.
What up, Jeremy?
Not like 5% GDP robust, but ready to grow. Deregulation and tax cuts.
Yep,
without the trade war, and you'd have a booming economy right now, which is why I've been saying Navarro needs to be fired. Just let Scott Bessent run this ship. That's all. Just let it happen. Because of lack of faith in the American economy, de-dollarization continues. This is foreign economies moving away from investment in the American dollar. According to Axios.
One thing that I will say, because I've heard a couple of people say this, not you guys, but a couple of people elsewhere say this, about America not being the reserve currency. That would take an incredibly long time. Just so everybody knows, so you are speaking with the correct information. America not being the reserve currency for the rest of the globe would take, I don't know, in the area of a decade. So just so you know, that's not really a talking point.
Axios, the U.S. dollar index in Trump's first 100 days fell 9.5%. Compared
so Ben Shapiro spends a good amount of the video just listing off the economic, what's the opposite of accomplishment? The economic pitfalls that have been caused by the Trump admin over the past 100 days. And good, we're about to have idle ships. We're about to have empty ports.
No, I haven't
seen
seen
the port of Shanghai in
Shapiro's
China, the biggest cargo ships are sitting idle. Shipping companies have even begun using smaller ships to move cargo as demand softens. Even so, sailings from China to the U.S. fell 60% in April, and we will see prices raise. Higher prices on store shelves coming in weeks. Once the cargo hits U.S. ports, the goods take as little as a few weeks to hit store shelves. And when the current inventory runs out, more expensive tariffed items will make their way onto shelves. There's a lot of concern right now. Right now, retailers are in the process of trying to figure out their back to school and Christmas orders and how and when they're going to place those. Lord have mercy. Caused directly by the guy who promised to lower prices on day one. I will keep you all updated. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe. I love you all. See you in the next one. Peace out.
Aw, thanks, Adam. Love you too, buddy. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And check out that video on the screen now.